So the proposition I'm refuting today is Justin Meeks. He proposed that media multitasking is almost always detrimental to learning capability, with three secondary claims. First, that media-based multitasking usually decreases efficiency and accuracy on tasks. Two, media multitasking lowers test scores among students. And three, media-based multitasking hampers the brain's functionality. My response to his main claim is that the negative effects of media multitasking is a non-issue and is championed ineffectively. Why is it a non-issue? The main claim is lacking one of the important factors for a good argument, which is relevance. No one is arguing that media multitasking is a beneficial to learning, much less on a controversial level. Yet, the way he connected his evidence to his claims is still lacking. The response to his first secondary claim: the amount of efficiency and accuracy lost due to media multitasking is not significant. The statistics proposed, which came from a study that had multitaskers and non-multitaskers read and identify objects, didn't have a large enough discrepancy to warrant acceptance of his claim. There was only a difference of about 20 seconds for the reading and 5 objects not identified. In addition, his second form of evidence, which was a survey on college students discussing whether or not they multitask and whether or not multitasking interferes with their studies, is not relevant to the claim because it does not substantiate a decrease of efficiency or accuracy, only informs on the use of multitasking for fun, as said by the opponent. A response to the secondary claim is, evidence does not support claim of lowered test scores adequately. The survey study does not prove or reinforce the claim of lowering test scores, for it only details the number of students who multitask and believe multitasking interferes with their studying. Furthermore, with the second evidence, which details how laptop multitasking hinders not only the individual student but the peers, the opponent does not directly correlate how this evidence lowers test scores, therefore making the evidence irrelevant. As a counterclaim to that point, according to the study by Northeastern Illinois University professor Rachel F. Adler, results show that when the primary task was considered difficult, subjects forced to multitask had significantly lower performance compared to those who didn't. Conversely, when the primary task was considered easy, subjects forced to multitask had significantly higher performance than both the subjects who did not multitask and subjects who multitasked at their discretion. As a third and final response to his third secondary claim, the source used to enforce the claim of lowered brain functionality is unreliable. The evidence provided is an article presenting uncited sources written by an author who specializes in emotional intelligence, not the area of expertise when it comes to his main claim. In addition, the comparison of IQ drop to those who don't sleep or smoke marijuana is ambiguous and difficult for the audience to gauge on the basis of whether it's long or short-term effects. In conclusion, the opponent's claim that media multitasking is always detrimental to learning capability is, besides being not controversial, it is not championed effectively due to the many lack of warrants linking the grounds to the claim. Thank you.
All right, we got a pretty good start laying out what the claim was and the secondary claims. You kind of got this counter argument that you're suggesting that this is a non-issue, and I thought that you were kind of going in the direction that there's not really a lot of controversy, that distractions, in fact, decrease productivity, at least in some cases, so that's not where the controversy is. I think that's the point that you're trying to make there. It needs to be simplified a little bit. You've got a lot more explanation, and you also introduced the term relevance several times when I didn't think relevance was the point that you were talking about. There were a couple places where the term relevance did apply to the argument, but sometimes it seemed like you were just simply saying they failed to adequately prove it, or the information that was being used, you can't reach that conclusion from the information that's going on. Probably 80% of your argument are presses on the information that the advocate presented. You ask a reasonable question, you point out something that might raise some doubts in people's willingness to accept the conclusion that's being presented there. And most of those presses are good arguments to make if you were making them, for instance, immediately after the speech. So like if we were listening to a debate, you heard this at first, this is the first time you heard it, and you came up with those answers, I'd say, that's excellent. You did have a little bit more time, though, to get ready, and I think you needed to have some additional information to be able to respond to those points. Although I do think that your primary argument suggesting that there isn't really much controversy on that, that's maybe the way to go, and that could be developed a little bit more. But I did like this idea that, look, the measurement that there's a 20-second difference, or they forgot 5 objects out of whatever it was, 100 that they looked at, how important is that? I'm not saying that that's a good thing that people forgot those kinds of things, but has it made a difference in anybody's lives? Do we have doctors who are unable to perform their tasks, because they're multitasking and that sort of thing? Do we have any increase in the number of accidents that we've had, industrial accidents, people failing out of school, doctors leaving materials inside of bodies? How are we measuring this practically? That seems to be a little bit problematic. And we're back to the issue where I don't think there's much dispute that a distraction is a potential problem. The question is, how significant are the distractions? And the best information that you have, the one piece of evidence that you cite, suggests that, it's that study that says, well, when the primary task is difficult, then multitasking is problematic. But when the primary task isn't particularly difficult, then people's efficiency really improves. I think that's that's kind of the key argument that you're making here, and says people adjust their multitasking based on the complexity of the issue that they're dealing with. Look, if you're doing brain surgery, you say, I probably shouldn't be tap dancing along with the music on the radio because I'm doing something that's really complex in that situation. On the other hand, if I'm just doing some mindless number crunching while I'm working here at my computer, it's not going to hurt me to also be listening to TV and having it on in the background kind of stuff, because it's not going to distract me from going 3 plus 5 plus 3 plus 5 plus 4 plus 5 plus 3 plus 5. It's that. So you kind of have to put it into a context. That's the argument that you're making. And like I've said before, sometimes you've got the argument there, but you're presenting it in a way that is not audience friendly. And remember, this in an oral communication, we're talking to an audience here. So I did think that I lost your second point. I know it's in there someplace, but I think it needed to be highlighted a little bit more. I did see a response to the third point, so there's a couple of structural things. But I understood most of the arguments that you're making, and I think that, like I said, you had good presses. I just think you need a little bit more evidence here and there. Okay, thank you.